How connected do you feel to your Javanese roots?
Yeah, quite connected because of grandfather.
This is Jord, a historian of Javanese-Surinamese heritage from the Netherlands.
My grandfather would take me in his arms and he would say, "You are a Javanese. There's many people like me and we all blend in society very well." They need to be expressed in the Netherlands as an existing community.
He searched for family roots,
The silence of the Dutch East Indies.
and the stories of Javanese communities returning from Suriname
Javanese diaspora and colonial era is way bigger than we perceive it is.
brought him to Indonesia.
Hello. Yeah.
How do you usually explain where you are from?
I'm very Dutch, and my Dutch friends see me as Dutch, and in the Netherlands I'm just very Dutch. My Indonesian side is less emphasized because my father is 100% Dutch, my mother is 50-50, and my mother was raised in a Dutch way. There's many people like me, and we all blend in society very well. It has been going on for generations. There's Indo people, Indo-European people, and there's mixed people of Javanese-Surinamese descent.
The indo-european people and the Suriname descendants, they are different groups.
Yes, they are, and they don't often meet each other. There's no common ground in that part of history.
Can you explain about that?
So Indo-Europeans have a history of being in a very ambiguous situation during colonial era. They were both part of the elite society because they were educated as being colonial rulers as well. They spoke Dutch, they were educated in the Dutch way. They're usually taken away from their Indonesian mother as well to emphasize their side of being Dutch. Javanese were just the workers. In Dutch we would say inlanders. It's the lowest class of colonial society. They were not mixed with Dutch, they didn't speak Dutch, and they were used as forced labor. And this forced labor was brought to Suriname as well. So that's why those two groups, they don't have much to talk about. They're both recognized, although the Javanese-Surinamese are way less recognized than the Indo-Europeans.
Is it still the case today?
We have a concept in the Netherlands. It is called Indisch zwijgen. It means the silence of the Dutch East Indies. And it's a way of dealing with trauma, and this means not saying anything at all. The generation above me, from the Javanese-Surinamese side and also from the Indo-European side, they don't talk too much because their parents didn't tell much. Our generation is asking the questions. You're asking me the questions, and so on and so forth. We are part of the generation that is finally having the freedom to ask.
The freedom to ask. Before we ask more questions, let me give you some context.
Dutch colonial rule in the former Dutch East Indies created post-colonial communities in the Netherlands, such as Indo-Europeans, Moluccans, and Javanese-Surinamese. Each carries its own historical grievances and seeks recognition from the Dutch state. Yet even today, the visibility and acknowledgement each group receives remain unequal.
The Dutch government is now planning to step up education and awareness efforts aimed at tackling racism in the Netherlands, where reminders of slavery are still very easy to find.
Some communities have their own museums, commemorative days, and public events, while others remain far less visible. Now back to the questions.
How much did your Javanese or Indonesian side present?
Very good question, yeah. Very much non-existing. It is because my grandfather, he was born in Suriname as a Javanese man. He moved to the Netherlands, but he moved to a very small village near the German border, very agricultural community. I fear he was afraid of racism. And so he didn't raise his daughters to be a little bit Mulihnjawa. I think my mother and my aunt, they grew up to think they had blonde hair. They weren't taught Javanese, they weren't taught Surinamese, and he wanted them to be free of the racism. Didn't work because they still look different, but that's why they didn't inherit the culture. So when I was born, I didn't inherit any culture except for the Dutch. Only difference is that when I was a child and from that age on, my grandfather would take me in his arms and he would say, "You are a Javanese."
Right.
Because he wanted to pass on the heritage to me because he felt more freedom. I was from a bigger city in Utrecht. I was from an era that had more open-mindedness, and so I think he kind of created me to look back at Javanese history again. And now my mom and aunt, I want to say they are kind of healing. They're feeling more freedom to look at their Javanese side as well.
Do you actually feel that you are Javanese? You actually feel that connect? Okay, yes, grandfather, I am a Javanese, or something more. Okay, just aware.
I feel connected as through respect and understanding. When I see Javanese culture, I take a bow and I go like, okay, that is very nice batik, or I go, that is a beautiful tradition or a beautiful language. But I will not pretend I am part of it, but I would rather say I am a big admirer, and I am able to take the context of the culture in historical perspective. In a sense, I am still connected to it. I don't feel like an outside researcher that says, oh yeah, this is what Java people did, or that's why I also changed my last name from Van S to Van S Mukasan, which is my Javanese-Surinamese family name. So I can emphasize that I am also part of the diaspora. So I'm not once again this Dutch researcher. Because there's been many books written on Indonesian history by Dutch people that don't have blood from Indonesia.
Outsider. I see.
Yeah.
Back to your ancestors from Java to Suriname. What's the story that's being passed down to your family?
There's little passed down because events have been traumatic and people rather not talk. Still in Suriname you have this problem. Still in Netherlands, there's a big community of Javanese-Surinamese as well. You also have this problem. My generation is finally doing that research, so I had to do a lot of research myself. Nobody told me that my great-grandmother was born in the Cilacap region. I found out myself. Nobody told me that my great-grandfather was actually born in Suriname already as one of the first Javanese to be born in Suriname. I found out myself. So all the events are in a vague cloud of trauma. Does that answer your question actually? Yeah,
it does. So you found everything by yourself?
Yes, I found everything by myself, but I was created to find it by my grandfather.
Makes
so
sense.
I was pushed into finding this, so I am still a product of the ancestors. I am still only a messenger rather than self-made historian. You know, I'm not going to claim the success because what I do is a success of my ancestors to reclaim their history.
So does your family talk about Indonesia or Java even a bit?
There's a lot of conversation in my family about the Surinamese family. They're 100% Javanese, they like batik, they have still Islamic prayers. There is Jarang Kepang, there's gamelan as well. So we talk about our present family who is in Suriname, and Java is being seen as a memory. It's a generational memory of the island. Because, well, my sister went also a few years ago, but my generation again is the first one to go to Java. For my mother it was too far and too strange and too culturally far away, and my grandfather also was not attracted to go. It was a bit much. In both the Netherlands and Suriname, Java is a living generational memory, I would say.
Any chance it rises more than just a living memory on today's generation?
What is very necessary is to communicate to the Dutch government what really happened, because after slavery this period is very vague and it's described as contract labor, which sounds positive because it's about people having contracts, but those contracts were not a mutual agreement, I would say. They are a product of colonial government. And many people weren't able to return to Java. The groups that suffered from this indentured labor, they need to be expressed in the Netherlands as an existing community. For example, in the Netherlands right now, if you walk and show Javanese heritage, they will all say, you're Indonesian, but you're Javanese from Suriname. So people in the Netherlands don't know about this story. To make Javanese-Surinamese history part of a living memory culture, the first thing to do is to understand the history of indentured labor. And then we can maybe see how this will live on.
In Indonesia, has anyone told you that you look very Indonesian?
It doesn't happen as often I would expect. I expected maybe more, but I'm just so tall and so wide after all. But it usually happens when I say, or I show my ID saying Juari, then you get a lot of Javanese saying, hey, are you part of diaspora? And then you get the conversation going. So usually when my name is discussed.
Now you're here in Indonesia, you've been to Java too and Sumatra. What's familiar to you?
I think the smells, especially when grandfather was in the kitchen. That smell still traveled to Suriname and still traveled again up north to Netherlands. And so the food stayed the same. Although culture changed gradually and became more Dutch in my family, the food is a familiar smell. Bami is a very big part of Javanese-Surinamese society. Bami, and chicken is still cooked a lot. You have the ketchup and everything. Sambal is very big. They also have South American spices that are mixed into Javanese food. So you have this more hybrid kitchen that still has Indonesian smells, but sometimes it has South American spices into it. Yeah, really cool.
What else?
I'm just very motivated to share the story of this diaspora with everybody. First of all, I'm super grateful for Indonesian people to be always deeply interested in what I have to share. I can learn from them and they also want to learn from me, which is a very grateful position as a Western guy. It feels like reconnecting, yes, but it's reconnecting in a historical way, not in a
personal.
Not as much as in a personal way, because I do understand that I am very white and I will not be an Indonesian. I'm just as Indonesian as the people in the football team, though.
Yep.
I can be Maarten Paas if you want. I'm pretty tall.
I feel like you're really drawing the line between you are more of a researcher through historic lens. This is not personal because you know you are white.
Yes,
you do that, yeah.
Although I have to admit that I cry almost every day about the history. So you discover a lot of people that were hurt, people that were given promises that were not lived up to by the people in power. My great-grandmother, she tried to walk away from the plantation, for example. She was punished with 180 days of extra labor. And for a woman in the 1920s, 30s to walk away from the plantation into the Amazon jungle, you must be very desperate. So things like that I discover on a daily basis and it still touches my soul. So yes, I'm understanding that I'm European after all, but I am uncovering things that do generationally hurt me still. So it's right in the middle. What I'm mostly doing is reconnecting Indonesia to the Atlantic story of Netherlands and Suriname. Indonesia is part of this history as a part of departure from the contracted people, the indentured laborers, but it's also a part of the return of them. And that's a very unseen bit of history. So I want to show that colonial history is a circular movement in this Atlantic and Indonesian story.
Jord's journey to trace the Javanese communities that returned from Suriname is documented on his Instagram page at Mulihnjawa, where he captures the stories, people, and history behind it.
What are you trying to understand through your research project? It's called, sorry?
Mulihnjawa.
Mulihnjawa.
Yeah, to return to Java. What I'm trying to understand is how return to Indonesia was managed, what happened to those people, and what effect does this have on our thinking of indentured labor in Suriname, reconnecting Indonesia to the history, because Indonesia is a big part of it and it's rarely seen as part of the Surinamese history as well. That's my biggest goal, is giving more information, adding to the project, adding to the struggle of awareness of Javanese-Surinamese history, because we don't know in the Netherlands. So I want to add to the story. I want to contribute, that's the word I was looking for.
If that awareness is achieved, what do you wish to see next?
Oh my God. There is a bigger Javanese diaspora than only Suriname. After Surinamese independence in 1975, the Javanese that didn't trust this process, they fled to the Netherlands. The Javanese that didn't have enough money to go to the Netherlands, they went to French Guiana. So it's a part of France. It still is today. It's north of Brazil, it's in the Amazon jungle, and there's Javanese people living there. That's one group I need to go to. There's history of diaspora going to New Caledonia in the Pacific. So Javanese diaspora in colonial era is way bigger than we perceive it is.
How come we don't hear about that?
I can only guess because I'm not part of the community itself. I think it's the concept of harmony. I've heard it's rukun. It's searching for harmony, not standing above the crowd, not being loud, being respectful. But there's no real shout from the community. I think it's happening in the Netherlands now. I think we're building on something. But there has never been much of voices that stand up for these people. They care about family, they care about work, they care about balance and harmony in life.
Do they still talk like the Suriname?
The Javanese that went to French Guiana, they actually speak perfectly French.
Okay.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, and the same goes for New Caledonia. And this is something that Javanese people have always been good in. They are great at adapting, go with the flow, searching for this harmony. So at the same time that we don't hear about them that much and we don't know about them that much, they value that they're thriving. And it's better to thrive yourself in quietness than to challenge and go for a bumpy road in loudness. And that's why we don't know much about them. It's my theory, I don't know for sure because I'm not part.
your Mulihnjawa, what have you found?
So before the Second World War, the returning ships had people that were not noted down as being passengers. They were no longer interesting for colonial society because they were done with their work, and usually you get a passenger list of saying, okay, there's so many colonizers' names, and then the captain also notes, oh, and by the way, there's 300 Javanese down below in the ship. And this is, you need to look into the gaps of the archives to find these people. It's very hard to do. Maybe like 30 boats that managed to return from Suriname to Indonesia, and those people, they adapted to society really well. So there's no real trace of them. It means that it's one culture still. After the Second World War, during and after revolution, you have this wave of Indonesian nationalism, and this is where it gets very interesting. Because Javanese in Suriname, they felt connected to Indonesia because Indonesia was rising. So in 1947 there was one ship, it was called the Tabion, and people put together their money. I think about 600 to 700 people, they traveled from Suriname to Java on their own. They arrived in what was then called Batavia, and they were taken by the Dutch colonial government and interviewed. They said they wanted to go to Jogja, which was already free back then. The Dutch said, you don't want to go to Jogja, there's not going to be any work. And they said, we'd rather eat grass in Jogja than stay in Batavia and eat nasi. So you see this very nationalism in this Javanese group from Suriname, and you still see a lot of dedication to be part of the Republic of Indonesia that was still being shaped. So that was one of my most interesting finds. And then my second find, which is maybe even more crazy, is that in 1954, the last ship, which was called the Langkuas, it sailed from Paramaribo harbor to Indonesia. And it's a project of 1,018 people. It was personally managed by Muhammad Hatta. They got land in Sumatra because Indonesian government at the time said Java is full. I don't know, but Java was full according to them. So now you have this situation of 1,018 people arriving in a small village called Tongar near Pasaman in northwest Sumatra. Being in an agricultural society, they were all educated technicians. They didn't know how to harvest the land, so many left immediately. But some stayed, and I went to this small village, and there's still 80 to 87-year-old people that I managed to interview. And they were all raised in Suriname. They spoke a little bit Dutch, they spoke a lot of Javanese, and the Javanese culture is still existing in this small village in Sumatra. They have a yearly reunion, and Suriname is actively remembered, but it's a very fluid society. They're also just part of Minang culture. And they have Minang children, but my great-father's brother would have been on the same boat. He would have gone on that Langkuas 1954 boat, but he was too poor and kicked out in Suriname. The rest of his life he was called Langku, to remember him and to bully him. But the thing is that if he would have been on that boat and he would have returned to Sumatra, I was playing volleyball in this village and I would have been playing volleyball with my distant cousins, but they are in Suriname now. But the history is still alive, as you can see. And the people even have plants from Suriname in their gardens. So you see how there's even botanic evidence of this. It was the most inspiring thing I did during my research.
What's your conclusion about Javanese people? I mean, you said a lot.
Yeah.
What's your conclusion about them?
So the great conclusion I found about Javanese people is definitely, if I have to put one word, it's going to be harmony. And it's going to be harmony because even in Suriname, there were people from Sunda, there were people from, there were Madurese people, and they were also part of this Javanese group that went. But because they were all from the surroundings of Java, they were just called Javanese. So I think I also have Sundanese roots without even really knowing. And the Javanese just harmonized with this and created a new fluid Javanese in Suriname. So in Indonesia, as well as in the diaspora world, I found they're super harmonious people, as I just found in Minangkabau in Sumatra.
Harmony.
I
see. But what you said in Suriname, how the Maduranese or Sundanese, they become part of the Javanese.
Yes, they are, yeah.
So is it more like they have forgotten about what they were?
Yes, I think there is Javanese people in Suriname now that don't know they're actually Sundanese. Yeah. It's a very fluid situation. I must say that Javanese was like the #1 culture that went. Only like 2 to 3% Sundanese, we think, only like 1.5% Madurese. And they quickly were invited to join the Javanese cultural heritage.
Sayang.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's very unfortunate.
It's part of colonial history. You have to be part of the stronger group to survive.
After finding a lot of information about during your research here, has it changed you in any way? I mean, you've been crying a lot That's one thing.
I have. I need to make sure that I'm not going to cry now. So the way in which my grandfather motivated me to research this family history, he also told me about the people that are Javanese from Suriname that live in Sumatra. And he told me personally. And me traveling there and through his roots connecting back and being, well, carrying the same name that was supposed to go there in 54. Yeah, that was a big moment. Yeah. I hope it answers the question. Sometimes I'm just rolling about.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yes, there's been a big change because I connect more deeply to this part of history. Yeah. I think I'm not only researching it, I'm a living proof of the diaspora. And so being part of my own story that I write is something that is super humbling, and I'm very grateful for that.
How proud are you of your identity?
Oh yeah, I do tell about my identity, bro. Yeah, I do. At a party, I do wear batik, man.
You do?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, it's just so cool. I mean, it's such a rich culture, and whenever I find the space in which I can have a little bit of that, I love to. Yeah, I never overdo it, so I don't go I don't go full Indonesian, you know.
Yep.
But in moments, in special moments, I do use a little bit of my diaspora ancestry. And yeah, at moments like that, I am proud. But I'm mostly proud when I think that I am living a privileged life of being able to travel, being able to study, and my great-grandmother working in a sugar plantation in Suriname. If you see how much my ancestors worked and how lucky my grandfather was to make the guess and just go into the deep and travel the Netherlands, I am proud of what my ancestors did, so I can be proud of my own things.
You're proud of their struggle and the story.
I think so, yeah.
There are a lot of Dutch people, like Dutch, Suriname, Javanese, Indonesia. These three groups, they're like deeply mixed in. Like a lot of people with similar background. They are either Surinamese, Indonesian, Javanese, or Dutch. But
Or Maluku,
yeah,
or Papua.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
What would you say to them? Like something, a reflection you have from all this journey.
I'd love to say stay visible in Dutch society, speak the language, dress in what you dress, celebrate what you celebrate, and stay visible. In this way, Netherlands people will grow in understanding. They will grow in understanding diaspora, they will grow in understanding colonization, and they will grow in maybe being a more inclusive country in the future because of this. I said it before, but the process of indentured labor in which people were forced to work in exchange of their freedom, this needs to be a phenomenon that needs to be broadly understood by the Dutch. They need to see that it was created by the same people that created this broad transatlantic slavery system. This is something that needs to be understood before we can celebrate and understand Javanese-Surinamese culture.
Anything else you want to add? Something perhaps I haven't asked.
Yeah, I would like to thank you deeply.
Matur
Thank you so
suwun.
much, brother. Thank you
Terima
so
kasih
much.
sekali.
Terima kasih banyak.
Great story.
Thank you so much, brother.
Not Diplomat Channel.